Welcome to the Woodlands Area Chamber of Commerce Young Professional Network podcast, a show where we discuss topics related to business, lifestyle, politics, and other challenges that young professionals are facing. We want our millennials and Gen Z to strengthen today for your impact on tomorrow.
Hello and welcome to the YPN podcast here at the Woodlands Area Chamber of Commerce. I'm David Deveau with Woodforest Wealth Strategies.
And I'm Cameron Cruz with 5 Point Credit Union. And we have some interesting guests today. I'm so excited. Everybody probably already knows them already, but I'll let them introduce themselves. Who wants to start?
I'm Marcus Bridgewater, known on the internet as Garden Marcus, CEO and founder of Choice Forward.
And I'm Dana Hammarstron. I'm the co-founder of Choice Forward, and I'm behind the screen of Garden Marcus.
Yes. We have a double duo going on here. I like it. So tell us about yourself. How did you get started? Like, what made you do this?
Ooh, yeah. Just remember we only have like 30 minutes, so.
I know.
Okay, so I started studying the extensive spirituality as a youth.
Okay.
I was, curious just about what made people tick, and that came from the fact that I was the son of an island's mother, and we were adopted into a Southern family. And as a result, I didn't ever really have like a place where I was the normal guy. Like I had to adapt no matter where I was. But that let me see into everyone's circle. Mm. And I was like the guy on the outside of the bubble, but it let me bridge everybody's bubble. So then I started to wonder, why can't people be kinder to each other? Why can't people like bridge the bubble themselves? I tried to bring people together. There was chaos. So that was as a young man. Fast forward into life, we have to make money. Right. We have to survive in the world. I was an independent contractor for quite some time.
And those 1099s. Right?
Oh, you gotta love them,
Those
man.
are my favorite.
You gotta love them. That was a really interesting time in life. It took me all over the world, but I wound up still following my passion on the side, which was studying people and like having conversations about spirituality and what it meant to be alive. And as I studied all these different facets of life and spent time with various religions and various spiritual leaders, various elders, I saw lines of consistency. And I was taking notes the whole time. I journal as often as I can. And those journal combinations were really feeding parts of my spirit. But again, we have to make money, we have to do things. I was called to the Woodlands to work at a private preparatory as a technical director. I was promoted to building supervisor, and I was also tasked with creating curriculum for the theater. And as I was doing that, and like my workload was increasing, my hours are increasing, I found myself feeling the fatigue that a lot of people feel in the 9-to-5 grind. And that grind is real, and I was caught in the grinder, whittling down. And as that was happening, a friend suggested that I follow her to a department store. And if we back up just a bit, I bought my first house when I moved here. Okay. And as a housewarming gift, an old friend of mine gifted me, an old friend of mine's parents, she's like my plant mom, she gifted me 16 plants.
Wow.
And they were exotic. She had a nursery. She was closing her nursery. Me and my mom, we drove those plants from Florida to here. I got them here, and within 2 months, I'd killed them.
Yeah.
Half of them. I'd killed half of them.
You're and I was, kind of gardener.
I was super sad, man. And I was like, oh my gosh, I want to keep the other half alive. What do I do? And so that research really got me into the garden. Fast forward to the grind, whittling down. Friend says, hey, come and look at all of these discounted plants that the box stores are selling like next to nothing. So I go around in the local area, and at that time they had a plethora of sweet potato, and everybody was like trying to sell it on the cheap because they had so much of it. I bought hundreds. Like anywhere I could go that I could buy some, I bought at quarters, any dimes on edge. And then as I accumulated those, I increased my garden, and I found peace in my garden. And the more I found peace in my garden, the more I found myself growing in ways I didn't anticipate. Fast forward to me having some strawberry plants, and war with the squirrels began. And in the effort to battle the squirrels, I'm trying all kinds of techniques. I find a technique that I think will work, but it takes a ton of work and effort. And bring in Dana to the garden and spark a series of events that would change my life.
You helped him not to kill the plants, right?
I helped him defend his plants from the squirrels.
There we go.
That's awesome. Teamwork.
In our conversation, he just started sharing different things with me, different ideas he had, and I was like, wow, like, these are really powerful concepts. Have you ever thought about sharing these on a greater scale? Because I noticed that they had been helping me over like the stages of our friendship, and there was a lot of potential with them. And he's like, no, but you know, maybe in my life I've written some books for myself, like I've done things with these ideas and I've shared them with people organically, but I've never really thought about taking them anywhere else. And so that's where the conversation ended.
Mm-hmm.
And then a year later, we sort of revisited that and planted the seeds of our company Choice Forward with the idea of helping people improve mental health, physical fitness, and spiritual awareness in order to build healthier environments and stronger communities. That was not how we described it when we first started the company. That's like the years of progress later.
You didn't write that out on a napkin or a
or
leaf, I guess, maybe in the backyard.
We were like just spitballing, like trying to figure out what it would look like. And so then that was 2017. We start thinking about what a company would look like. And then summer of 2018, we officially launched. And I'm thinking about social media. So I'm like, you know, Marcus, you're honestly the coolest person I know, but your Instagram name is gibberish. Like, it's just letters and numbers. And all you post is pictures of plants. You should call yourself Garden Marcus.
Yeah.
Nice.
I just kind of had this idea. I was like, you're definitely cool enough to become an influencer someday. I don't know how it'll happen. And honestly, didn't think that he would become a plant influencer. I just thought Garden Marcus sounded cool, and it's like,
It is a
has
very
a
cool
nice little
name.
jingle to it.
It's a woman's touch every time.
Every time,
Seriously.
every time.
He didn't
no
know
doubt.
anything about Instagram. He didn't know what DMs were. His account was private.
You just
So-
love plants.
So you tell me there's hope for me. That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying. I'm like,
absolutely.
my wife says
I
stuff to
mean-
me, I'm like, I
Oh
don't,
my
what
gosh.
Instagram can do what?
Exactly. When I mentioned the thing about that spiritual journey, right, I was that weirdo who, like, way back when social media was doing its thing, being like, well, guys, it seems like it's making you guys kind of weird, like different.
Right.
I'm gonna say no to that.
Right.
So I didn't have the accounts. I didn't have the smartphone. I wasn't following anything. I didn't know anything about what was happening in media, who was cool, who wasn't, and why people were doing. Like the amount of times I cross people doing things and be like, why are they doing this sequence of movements that seems to have no rhyme or reason? And it's all dances. People are doing trend dances, and like that was a new thing for me. So I was really, really fortunate. Dana came to the garden that day and encouraged me to dust off my notebooks, to take my thoughts seriously. They had been changing my life and my students' lives and my family's life, but I hadn't considered the idea they could change others. So
Yeah, and I want to pull something out of that. So what's really incredible about that, because I think a lot of people get this backwards, is you became an influencer just by being you. Like you were talking about, she encouraged you to share what you were already doing in your personal life with other people, and other people wanted to be a part of that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like, oh, hey, my goal is to be an influencer. How do I need to change so I can achieve that goal? Like, that's powerful. That's incredible. Speaking of, topic today is in the influencer business, a new industry era. I just remembered. I forgot to say that.
Oh,
Hey, got it.
intro.
Slid it in there. Look at that. Boom, boom. Play the music. They don't have
Wait,
music.
so
Hey,
have you even
music.
grasped the
Yeah.
concept that you're an influencer now?
It's really hard to digest in certain ways, truthfully. In a lot of ways, it's hard to digest what it means on what scale, because I genuinely think we all influence each other all the time. I'm one of those guys who's like, you're a combination of your community. So if you take the average of all the people you hang out with, you get yourself, right? And so to that end, that's why I like to surround myself with plans, because they're all always focused on growth. And like I have a small circle of people to surround myself with, because I want the people to be focused on growth as well.
Right.
So with that in mind, the act of influence happens on so many scales. I feel very blessed that like I had already taken being a human being alive in the 21st century very seriously.
Right.
So now having people take that seriously is like, oh, that's refreshing. But it's also somewhat humbling, and it's a reminder, it's like, oh, I need to keep doing what I've been doing, which is take care of me and make sure that me and my community are well and growing healthily.
And I think that's like the two things that separates you from other influencers is one, you never tried to become an influencer. We only started the Garden Marcus social media to promote our company because that was our focus. And Marcus is super grounded, so I think a lot of people would get the followers and it might go to their head, but because he is so removed from social media and has been, it was never something that made him think like, oh, I'm the coolest gardener ever, like
Right.
people love me. He was still focused on trying to help people grow and achieve the mission of promoting mental health, physical fitness, and spiritual awareness. And so the influencer was really a surprise. It's like, I know we have a time limit, so I'll just, I guess, speed up the arc of how the influencer came to be. So in efforts to promote the company at the end of 2019, right before 2020, an old student of Marcus's had come back and said, hey, you should get on TikTok because people are going to enjoy your content on growth and wellness and people need it. There's a lot of nonsense going on there and I think that you might be able to make a positive impact. Marcus thought it was a calendar app. He's like, why would I go on TikTok? And he was like, no.
It makes sense, right? And
I love that.
and
It
you're
does
like,
make
oh,
sense.
yeah, I don't need it.
A
I
scheduling
schedule
app.
everything
Okay,
by hand,
cool.
but it
TikTok,
sounds
let's
cool
go.
for people
Exactly.
who spend time on
Very
phones.
late for
We
a
never
very
used
important
it, we
date.
never got on it, hadn't been watching anything, but our friend thought there was some potential, so we decided we'd do 9 videos as an experiment, and if nothing happened, we'd move on and try something else. So after 9 videos, we had like 59 followers. We weren't really sure if we were gonna move forward with it, but Marcus said, you know what, we'll do one more video. And as we went outside to film it, one of the previous videos took off, started going viral, and we gained 10,000 followers overnight. And then a week later, I believe we were at 50K, and we're like, okay, there's something here. And so again, the goal was really just to promote the company. We weren't like selling the company and talking about the company. We hadn't said anything about it. He was sharing life lessons through the lens of the garden, using plant metaphors as a way to talk about wellness. And our friend was right, people really needed that. And then March 2020, as you all know, the world shuts down and suddenly people really need a connection to nature and something positive. And Marcus was able to provide that. And we kept making the videos. Suddenly New York Times reaches out, LA Times reaches out, Vogue reaches out, we get a bunch of national press. His presence only grows, and then suddenly he is indisputably an influencer.
Yes,
Crazy.
capital I.
Mhm.
Boom. Yeah,
Mhm.
and just to throw some numbers out there, so what we have is you have about 280,000 followers on Instagram and about 681,000 followers on the scheduling app TikTok. That's incredible. So I love that so many people want to follow your schedule. I'm not on TikTok. I'll just full exposure there. So I've been like this too. So now I might have to get on there. Oh my god, I just said it out loud.
Oh, gosh.
So,
Now you have to do it. Now you have to do
no,
what you
internet,
said.
do not hold me to that. So, real quick, like when you hit that mark, you talked about how quickly, just boom, like 10,000, 50,000, like how fast did you hit 100K? And then what was it like to be like, oh my god, like we just hit 100,000 followers? That's crazy.
So after the 50K, we honestly started to plateau a little bit. So 50K was before the pandemic boom. And then we'd gotten up to like 70K, I think, by the time the shutdown happened. And then from there, TikTok had become aware of his content and they'd flown him to Los Angeles at that point for a TikTok influencer conference. And he was able to meet other creators. And then they had invited us to do a program with them to post videos more regularly than we had been because we'd only been doing like 2 videos a week. And they were like, hey, if you do 5 videos a week for this long, we can work together on something. And from there, posting consistently was really when we saw the growth. So I think by mid-spring we had 100K. And then over the course of that program, we were probably up to 500K. And then 600K by the end of summer. So
Wow.
And being a young professional, you know how slow followers can get. Like, I can only imagine watching that numbers grow by thousands and thousands and still staying true to you. Because that's a big thing about being an influencer is staying true to who you are.
Yeah.
And even now, you've been flown across the country and you're still you.
Yeah, it helps to have been kicked in the rear enough times by life to not let your ego get ahead of you. Because it doesn't do anything for your growth or for the growth of those around you. And then the other side of that is because it's on the internet, right? And it was during pandemic, right? I could have been making the whole thing up, right? It's like, there was no people there to say like, hey, you know what I mean? I saw you, so now like, when you go to the grocery store, it's like seriously, sometimes, because again, mind you, I haven't had enough time to like believe the phone the way a lot of people like trust their phone. So like a lot of times I'm skeptical of anything I see, and I'm like, is this like real, not real? Is this a part of the screen? Is this one of them apps? Like, is this acting right? So with that in mind, there's several times where I remember going through the experience and being like, oh man, this could be make-believe. Hey Dana, what is it? And she's like, no, that's real. That's so really good to have a team. But that helps. And at the same time now, right, there's a lot more context for it because there's people, adorable interactions in the grocery store and just out in public where people recognize me and be like, oh my God, are you? Are you
Cardi Martin?
That's so like, oh my God.
That's happened like 3 times recently. That's what he told the grocery stores because it's very consistent. It's all young women who are just like really happy to see it.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so and heartwarming in so many ways. So as you can imagine, it's made it more real just because.
So what does a day-to-day life look like for the both of you? So now you're up here, you're at the top, you're here, you're loving
at the
it.
top.
Look,
He's like, I hope it's not the top. He's like, oh, we're so glad.
Okay, fine. You're getting even better. So what does it look like every day?
Oh man, every day is a lot of work. Now here's something to throw into this mix because it's really important to note, okay? When I stopped my job at the school, I had roughly 100 plants inside, okay? And I had roughly 400 or 500 plants outside. And in certain seasons, once they would propagate in variety and I'd cut them off and put them everywhere, I'd have like 6 or 7. So it was like running a lot of numbers.
600 or 700.
600 or 700. 600 or 700.
Massive.
Massive guess.
Summer heat is rough.
So 600 or 700. Okay, so when I left the school and I had more time to spend in my garden, right? Well, all of a sudden now it's like, your boy got happy, and like I collected and propagated and curated, and so now I've got 250 to 300 plants inside and something like 400 to 700 at any one moment in spaces all around the house. So there's thousands of plants around the house. And so that requires a kind of concentration to care for. And so part of my routine, as we're talking about routines, is constant plant maintenance. Whenever I am not doing something, I am doing something. Right? So that I start with that because I will get up and watering the plants or just perusing the plants and just I'm talking to this guy, taking some time with that guy. Maybe you need a bath or maybe you need a soak. So that'll be the beginning of my day in the work day because it also helps me focus on what helped me grow and help me maintain the consistency of growth to begin with. And it's a meditation for me also. It's a very grounding experience. And then what do we have to film? What emails do we have to write? Right now, what podcasts and lives do we have lined up? And at that point, you're now trying to make sure you get the filming done, the editing done, the correspondence done.
We've been doing full-time company influencer everything since January of 2021. So it's been about 1.5 years now. And in that year, everything's been different. And every day is different because it depends on what's going on. So in 2021, he was doing a lot more speaking engagements. And we're also writing his first book, which he got the deal of December of 2020. And that was a result of his platform going and people being aware of what he's talking about and enjoying it and seeing that as something that could be valuable in a book. So writing, filming, as he said, and then preparing for different engagements he was doing. And then this year, the main focus has been promoting the book And we've done a lot more content sponsorships because when you're writing a book, one of the things they like to do is like, you sort of go dark until the book comes out. So you do fewer things, fewer press, fewer media engagements. And so the promotion on the back end has been more time consuming. But we've also been doing some content things. And so it really just depends. But recently, as you said, the thing about the filming is we've been trying to make sure we're consistent with making content, not only to promote the book, but also just to keep up the output because that helps with everything.
Yeah, and it goes back to this thing. It's been really incredible to the point of what marketing means today and how the change of business and the change of influence and how that lines up with business amounts to you needing to adapt is inquantifiable because truly I would not have had my company be seen by so many people across the planet if I had not listened to Dana and adapted my thought process to condense really incredibly large concepts down to something digestible in a minute. To be given that task and to like take the task on, challenge myself to try and do it, I'm seeing the rewards of having accomplished said task.
So we don't pay for advertisements for our company because everyone who's found us has found it through Marcus. They've just liked his personality, they've liked what he's talking about, they've looked into the company and then reached out to us. And that's something that's unique to the influencer agent industry because I know for so long people really had to pay for advertising to try to get people to see your work. But now if you have someone who people can relate to and who they can enjoy, they're likelier to look into the company just because they like the person.
And I found it fascinating in a lot of ways to have had people of such high credential reach out, but the people in my own area don't know, is been very fascinating and also a reminder of the complexities of what is influence and networking and business in today's time. So I've been very humbled and very blessed, very, very blessed.
Well, you answered that question and that question. Like, just let it go. So I do want to go back to, you mentioned the book, so that's coming out this month.
May 24th. Oh my God.
12 days.
Wow, you have no idea. It's like, it's been like, I mean, imagine you've had a seed you've been waiting to see the sprout of for years.
It's
just like,
seamless. I love Italian.
I think the book,
Okay, Garden Marcus, come on.
I'm just so used to it. It's like he speaks in plants. I'm like, oh yeah, they're people.
Oh, okay. You guys are just, he's really growing on me, so it's okay. Oh, darn. Wow, that's new. Yeah. So sorry, Internet. Wow.
His book's called How to Grow, by the way.
Oh, yes.
Nurture your garden, nurture yourself. So, yeah.
But I was just going to say for the theme of the podcast, the influencer industry, I think the book was probably like one of the main things to sort of highlight what can come out of being an influencer. When we started our company, people are like, how are you going to make money helping people? And then when we started making videos, people are like, what do you think's going to come from him talking about plants? Like, how is that going to do anything? And I'm like, there's something here. Trust me. And there was a lot of people, publishers, agents started reaching out and saying, hey, have you ever thought about writing a book? Because he'd become an influencer and his videos were going all over the place and people were responding positively. And so for that arc to now be coming to where we are and the book's coming out is just such a wild thing that like none of us saw coming 2 years ago.
No, and the reach of things, you just have no idea. The fact that the book has already been bought in Korea, right? And it hasn't come out yet, which again is just, not your typical like trajectory of things. And I feel so humbled. Shout out to my Korean fans. But it's a really incredible thing. The amount of DMs I've gotten from people across the world. Someone in France touched my heart. It's like, they're like, oh, you changed my life. And now I've like interacted with my whole family differently. We all garden together now. We have a whole century. Like, what? That's incredible. Thank you for this message. And thank you for that encouragement to just keep sharing and being kind. Because as Dana said, for a long time, people thought that we were absolutely nuts for not having.
You don't have a degree in this. You don't have a certificate. Like,
don't you want to get a real job, right? Yeah, right.
And you're gonna try and help people.
Because who does that?
Right.
Right. And then I'd be like, well, darn, that's That's really sad. Like, I mean, just that framework. But if you read the book, which I hope everyone does, I address some really heady concepts through the lens of the garden, and I go through mental health, physical fitness, spiritual awareness. We wrote it to reach all kinds of life. Doesn't matter who you are, what you look like, what you're from, how much money you have. It's about life. And so a part of that is life having a battle right now with the world. And we created the world. The world is our industries, it is our institutions, it's all the stuff that we have. And that can be a powerful tool, but many of us have lost touch with how to use it as a tool. And so now that tool is stifling the thing it was created to help life.
Right.
And so that battle is something I feel very, very blessed to be alive and be allowed to support, because life is what's important. It's in all of us. It's our commonality. So I'll speak to each one of you and speak through the nonsense that we have created between us to the life that we share within us. And that will create synergy and create growth. And I think that we need to focus on doing that more, because the world is not making that easy. And the world almost making it seem like that's impossible and not even worth the time. When I'm like, whoa, what's life about if not connection and growth?
Amen.
Right? So it's like, don't let the concrete and the plastic get to you. Find some soil every now and then, put your feet on the ground. Jesus, right?
Oh, I love it. So, in closing out, I want to ask you this kind of final question, but since we are a podcast for younger professionals, and I know a lot of people in the younger professional genre, I don't even know if that's the right word, I probably sound old now, but, or, people out there on TikTok, on Instagram, it seems very glamorous from this side of the curtain, seeing that, being like, oh, it must be nice, all you have to do is just do what you love, and all these people watching you get paid money for it, right? Like, all these stereotypes of what influencers are, but like, so people that are coming up, even people coming up that are younger than us, like maybe just coming out of high school or coming out of college that are really engrossed in this world, like, what advice do you have to them as far as that whole, like, can you be an influencer? What does that mean? You know what I mean? Like, what's your advice to those people thinking, you know what, I don't need a traditional job, I'm gonna be an influencer?
I'm gonna let Dana go first, because I have some comments on that, but.
So the first thought I have is that, what makes you an influencer, and then once you become quote unquote an influencer, what means it's going to be sustainable? So you might think, oh, I want to be an influencer, I don't want a real job, but there's not necessarily a guarantee that you're going to be able to make money every single month or every single week or however often you need money to sustain yourself, because it's cyclical, it's volatile. There was that period of time in 2020, people thought TikTok might just be banned from the country. So it's like, let's say TikTok was your primary source of income and it just went away. What would you do if you did not realize how to leverage that platform on Instagram or YouTube, or find a partnership with a company that would last months to a year, so you knew that you'd have that consistent income? So that's one thing. There's no guarantee that it will be consistent, and there's no guarantee that the internet just won't go down. Like, one day the internet could just go down, and if you had to make a post that week and you weren't able to, it could potentially be a breach of contract, which brings me to point number 2. Contracts. There are contracts involved, and they are not in your favor. And if you don't have someone who's able to look over them for you, or if you don't have the insight yourself of how to look out for potentially damaging language, you could really get yourself into a sticky position. And I think that's probably the most underestimated part of the influencer industry is contracts, because every time you work with a company, you need to sign something. And a lot of times they'll put in scary language like, we'll own your image in perpetuity in the entire known and unknown universe. What does that mean? You need to be prepared to know what that means and figure out if that's something you're comfortable with, or if you're going to be able to negotiate and redline. And I think the next part is, it's difficult. Sure, you can just take a picture of yourself. That's what it looks like, but your content needs to be consistently engaging, because you can lose followers. If people don't like your content, they're gonna unfollow you, and that can potentially bring down what you're able to tell brands. Hey, this is how many followers I have, this is my reaches, this is what my rate is. So let's say you have 50K this day, a couple months later you have 40K, well, it's gone down. So what does that mean for you? So those are just things people need to keep in mind, is you need to be able to be consistent, and you need to know that it's something you'll be able to do. You don't wanna exhaust yourself out and then realize, you just quit your job and you want to be an influencer, but now you're exhausted and you're not able to continue what you're doing.
Wow. And to that point, it it made me like think about it. I was like, oh, I almost like stopped her for a moment to like interject, but I was like, oh, now I just gotta let her like finish that thought process. I did not do the influence first, right? The influencer first. So first off, check yourself, make sure you yourself are well, because if you're not well, it doesn't matter what you do, you're not going to grow, you're going to actually implode. That's just how life works, so check yourself. The other part of that is understand business, right? So long before we did any of this, I understood business, right? I have an LLC, Choice Forward is an LLC, it is trademarked, it is a company, I run that company knowing how the company works. So you may want to do influence, but influence is not how you will pay your taxes unless you're doing it as a sole proprietor, in which case you need to know what that means, right? So either own your company and then have things go through your company, or recognize that what you're chasing is an image that you don't necessarily understand. And so don't always look at the image, be sure to understand the hardware that is creating the image. You're likely to go further.
And I think what you said about making sure that you're well first is really important, because social media can be really damaging. It can be really hard for the dopamine. Like if you have one video get 1 million views, your next video gets 5,000 views, you'd be like, oh my gosh, like why did this video not do so well? Like everyone hates me, what's going on? And it can really lead to a negative cycle of thinking, and you have to be able to put the phone away and say, you know what, again, this is volatile, the algorithms have no rhyme or reason sometimes, and you can't let it get you down. But I think many people in Marcus's position who are working alone, because Marcus has me to work with, you know, I help manage a lot of the accounts, that could be a really destructive position to put yourself in. And how are you going to continue? Let's say, again, you quit your job to become an influencer, and then you're going through this negative cycle. It's a great way to find yourself looking for another job, I think.
Yeah, don't hold the merit of yourself on the numbers that you see on the screen. Know the people who are in your community, who you can look in the eye and treat them with kindness, treat them with respect. The only reason that our enterprise exists is because long before that, I was planting seeds of love, kindness, patience, and positivity between people. And I watched those seeds grow, and that's still what's nurturing all of us now. So.
Yeah, we couldn't do it if he wasn't so grounded. Because myself, managing the accounts and looking at the videos and posting them, there's so many times where I've been like, oh my gosh, like what's going on? He's like, Dan, it doesn't matter. It can't matter. And I'm like, oh, thank you for reminding me that. Because you get sucked into it. It's like, it's really easy to, especially when we were going through the huge growth on TikTok and everything's going up and up and up, and then maybe you have a day of stagnation or it goes down, and it's just easy to like really question yourself. And then you need to remember, it's just social media. Like there's so much more to life than social media. Even if it's what you do for a living, like you really just have to be prepared in this industry that it can't be where you put your self-worth and how you think about yourself and your identity, because it's not going to be consistent.
No. So I suggest if you do embark on this, get yourself a plant. Helps you stay grounded.
And on that, I love that. Get yourself a plan. And then also in his book that's coming out.
May 24th. Nurture Your Garden, Nurture Yourself. Sorry. May 24th, How to Grow, Nurture Your Garden, Nurture Yourself. The book is called How to Grow. And the thing I would leave people with truly is that be conscious. Every choice we make is a seed. And as such, be conscious of the seeds you plant today, because we're planting the seeds of our future with every choice we make.
I think he said it best.
Yes, he
did. That's how we end that. We want to thank Dana and Marcus for coming on our podcast here at the Woodlands Chamber. Be on the lookout every month as we post videos, and come back and see us. Thank you.
Thanks, y'all.